Okay, this morning we're working an interesting fish. This fish, which we call California Dragon Blood Red OB. I'm going to come up with a better name for him at some point, but it's kind of historic. A few years back, I was talking in California at San Francisco and Los Angeles clubs, and we were driving up the valley to San Francisco from LA, and stopped at a shop, and they had some dragon bloods. Now, dragon bloods have a blonde, goldish background color, not gray. It's interesting because that color is dominant to gray. So that the gene that determines that has two alleles: dragon blood, which is dominant, and gray, which is recessive. Uh, that group of fish, which look like normal dragon bloods, light-bodied females with males with gold background, but kind of a fuchsia, reddish color. But in their offspring, we ended up with some light-bodied fish. Meaning that that population had. Hang on a second, I want to rescue this bug. So one of our cicada species that they've all started early this year. Usually we don't have that many at this point. It was in the greenhouse. I'm going to let them go outside. Okay. Anyway, we ended up with some non-light-bodied fish. And surprisingly, we ended up with OBs. Now, I think OB is normally a dominant allele to non-OB. By the way, a little history on that. OB originally meant orange blotch and referred to a color pattern in Labiotrophus and Pseudotropheus. But it's come to mean any blotched Malawian fish now, Malawian cichlid. I think what happened is because they were dragon bloods, that light background, the blotching didn't show up. You couldn't see it. At any rate, we ended up with some fish that were not only OB, but were light background. And let's take a look first at our breeder male. We had two, we lost one. This guy was a youngster after the winter storm. He's finally getting some size on him, which is good because I'm going to show you how big the females get. He's a nice fish. And I picked two youngsters, which may be his offspring, but I'm going to put in the breeding colony too. They're too young really to breed yet, especially with that big male around. But they'll grow up and do some breeding. I don't like having a breeding colony with only one male because if something happens to him, you miss a breeding cycle. So he's going to be nice. He should be. I've got a few more that were aquarium maintenance the customer wants, but I picked out the two I really liked before we decided to sell those. Okay, now let's take a look at females. And we'll discuss what I select for in this strain. You can see these are big fish. This is not my preferred color. I think these darker gold and really dark blotched fish, and especially this one with a little red in it, are the best, produce the best males. But right now we just have to keep all the females we have. We have 27 big females like this, and I added, Susan, can you tell me how many little females I added?
19.
I'm at 19. I added 19 little females from our BRU, Breeders Unsexed Fat. That's where these two little males came from too. So that's getting up close to where we want this breeding colony to be. We only produced 154 juveniles, plus a bunch of fry that are in the vat that went through the net. We don't net it completely out. We just get the fish that are big enough to get caught by the net. I'm going to put these guys up real quickly. Then we're going to talk about some mollies and swords that we're polyculturing with these fish. So this is their vat. You can see the 300-gallon Goliad vat. It says 1DO2. That's greenhouse 1, row D, vat number 2. And I've got it set up for breeding. It has some hotels hanging around the side. It has a couple fry cages for fry to get into. These hotels are good for subordinate fish to hide in, and carrying females can hide if they want to. Okay, now then let's talk about this. We put up a bunch of swordtails already that are going in the sale vat. I selected some of the bigger fish for breeding. Show you the size on some of these. Oops. Okay, settle down. So I'm going to put these back in for breeding. They do remarkably well. I'd like to select for this brighter red, and as we get more fish, I will. Right now I'm just mainly going for size. I like her. This is a nice male. I think we've got a little bit bigger male in this bucket, but that's fine. I also put in a couple of fish that are not reds, just some greens. They'll mated to reds. They'll throw a bunch of reds. So those fish are going to go back in to breed. They do remarkably well with these big cichlids. We get quite a few fish out, and it's kind of a freebie. We don't tie up tank space raising these guys, or polyculture with something else, so it's kind of a freebie. What I've done, I've only picked a few really big males to put with these big females, and what I'm doing is kind of what's called mass selection. I'm selecting a few big males because they will throw only big males. The swordtails have the size of a male is determined by the Y chromosome. There's one gene with 3 alleles, small, medium, and large. And so they inherit that from their fathers. The females do contribute some modifying genes that maybe make them a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller within their 3 brackets. Okay, so let me put these guys up. Then we'll look at mollies. These mollies are mostly, let me get a minute. Are mostly hybrids between sailfins and short-fin mollies. That produces a big molly. What I'm trying to do is get size and get the sailfin back. I didn't find any males I really liked. In fact, I think there's only one, but you can see the size. Get this female back at the grid back there. You can see how big she is. Okay, this male, see, he's got some sailfin in him, and he's got the short fin molly tail with the orange border. That's going to be a young male. Anyway, I'm going to say that marble, he'll throw some marbles. I'm going to probably add a nice big sailfin male, green sailfin male to this breeding colony. But this guy's got genes for sailfin, so we'll try to concentrate those. So let's take a look at him one more time. So he's got a larger than normal short fin molly male, a sailfin or dorsal. Okay. Put these guys up. And so we're polyculturing. We actually have 4 species in this vat. We have the red OB dragon blood. We have these mollies that I'm selecting for size and sailfin. We have the swordtails that I'm selecting for red and size. And then we've got a bunch of guppies, the feeder guppies, that act kind of like dither fish. My theory is that the big fish get used to seeing little fish around, and when they see their own fry, they ignore them. Seems to work. We got this breeding colony almost up to a full size, so I'm expecting to get 300 or 400 offspring in the next breeding cycle, which we'll probably harvest these, what is it, June. We'll probably harvest these in October. Let's see, another bug got in here, but I'm going to leave it alone. It's a horsefly. Okay, good fish keeping.
Not really.